Welcome to English 4E. This is class 24, and we are working on Unit 2, the Culminating Activity. Today is Wednesday. Oh, I keep having the date wrong. March 27th for some reason. And I am Jillian Percy. Here is our contact information. My Facebook and YouTube are the same, capital G, capital P, ERCY, space, capital W, AHSA. I wonder if I can make that go away because it seems to be sitting there. Sorry. Oh, there we go. Kind of at least put it up out of the way. Okay. Jillian Percy. My email is jillian.percy, sorry, at nnacschools.org. If you want to talk while I'm on the air about an assignment that I'm teaching at that point, 1-800-465-7144. If you have a question about another assignment, either ahead of us or behind us, just send me an email, or you can always call me at the office, 1-800-667-3703, and my extension is 2211. Any assignments, please send to studentwork@nnec.on.ca. Always include your name, the course, and the assignment number and name, because I have about 4 courses I'm responsible for, so I don't want things to get mixed up. Okay, hang on. Sorry, it's moving a little bit slow here. Okay, today we're going to review the parts in a character sketch, the outward appearance, the inner personality, significance and importance to show in plot, discuss different genres. Oh, we kind of did this already. Identify important elements. We're basically going to be looking at how to write not a paragraph, but like a 5-paragraph essay on the novel we just read. Okay. Don't go forward with this assignment unless you've read the entire book, you've completed all the chapter questions. Each chapter has a bunch of questions to answer, and you've completed all the chapter reflections. Remember that you have to do 6 of them from your choice of chapters. This unit, what we're doing today, builds on all the work that you've done above. If you haven't completed those assignments, it's not going to be very easy to do this particular assignment, which is sort of a retrospective on everything we've read. It's totally fine to stop the video and finish up all the previous work before moving on, because you really will need it to be able to do this. All right, so this is the culminating activity. It's a reflection on a story. It's worth 80 marks. Based on your knowledge and understanding of the narrative, setting, characters, plot, theme, and conflict of the novel Where the Rivers Meet, which you will have learned through your reading and the completed written work and the class discussions, you're going to develop an essay in which you'll express your thoughts and feelings. You're going to comment on the main characters, like Nancy, George, Mrs. Smith. You will share a little bit about who they are, how they relate to one another, and their role in the story. As for the plot of the novel, you'll provide a summary of what happens in the book from beginning to end, but only include what you consider to be the most significant moments in the story. With regards to theme, you will comment on the purpose for or the main idea of the story. And then in addition to describing the characters, summarizing the plot, and identifying the theme, you're going to share an opinion about the novel. Was it worthwhile for you to read this book for interest's sake? Why or why not? And would you recommend it to others? This is kind of a massive assignment. You're going to follow the steps of the writing process to produce the essay. You're going to be submitting a rough draft with your essay along with a final copy. Your rough draft must show evidence of revising and editing. So your rough copy should not look exactly the same as your good copy, okay? The good copy isn't just making it look nice. Like sometimes people will handwrite the one and type the other, but all the words are exactly the same. It's supposed to show significant improvements in the writing itself. You must also include a cover page that will include your essay's title, your name, the course name, and the date you handed in. You're also encouraged to include a graphic, like some sort of sketch or a picture you took from the internet related to the concept of the essay on your cover page to add variety and quality to your assignment. Once again, as with earlier assignments, your draft must be handwritten while your final copy can be either neatly handwritten or a computer printout. A computer printout is recommended for your final copy. Not everybody is comfortable with computers, and that's fine. If you have nice, neat handwriting, I have no problem reading a handwritten one as well. Just make sure that it is nice and neat. The length. This is the longest assignment we've done so far. It needs to be at least 3 pages handwritten or 1 page of a computer printout. The length will depend a little bit on your font size, but please make sure to use at least a size 12 font for clarity and readability. If you're using a bigger font, you're going to need more room. Like some people are comfortable reading more of a 14 font or a 16 font. That's fine, but then it will need to be longer, right? Basically, this should be about 500 words, single spaced when typewritten. Okay, so if you're handwriting and you're not sure whether you have enough, do a word count and kind of make sure you've got enough material there to read. Okay, to help decide on the final mark for your essay, the following is going to be considered. Okay, the content, your details, what you say about the characters, the plot, and the theme, your sentence and paragraph structure, right? I'm looking for not having run-on sentences or comma splice errors or incomplete sentences, spelling, use of the various parts of speech, are they used correctly? Use of punctuation, supporting details. That means that you're using quotes or giving me examples from the novel. The length of the essay. This is a huge part. If you hand me in something and it's only about half as long as it needs to be, then you're just not going to get the same marks, even if the writing is amazing, because it's just not as long as it needs to be. So here is the grading scheme. The cover page is 5 marks. The draft copy, so your rough copy, is worth 25 marks. And then your final copy is worth 50 marks. That is a lot. And if you see the big difference between your draft copy and your final copy, with your final copy, I will be seriously looking for those significant revisions that show me you spent time trying to make this writing really good. If I don't see them, you can end up with a really good mark on your rough copy and then a really poor mark on the final copy if there's no difference. Okay. So please take that extra time to really try and improve your writing. Okay. I'm kind of putting this in a summary format. You have like basically 4 main topics you need to cover in this essay. You need to discuss the theme, the main idea or purpose behind the story. You need to discuss the overall plot of the novel, just the important plot points. You need to describe the main characters, who they are, what role they play in their relationship to each other. And then you need to give your opinion on the novel. So those are 4 main paragraphs. However, when you're doing a longer essay like this, you always need to have like an introductory paragraph, and then you have your body paragraph 1, body paragraph 2, number 3, probably have a 4th one because of how many topics you have to cover, and then a closing paragraph, okay? So this is a much longer essay. It's going to require a little bit more writing time. Quick review of the writing process. The pre-planning, and this is the stage where you're going to gather and generate ideas on the subject. The main goal in this stage is to get the ideas flowing and put them on paper. Because this is a longer essay, I really suggest that you take time to brainstorm each paragraph and brainstorm your introductory and your closing paragraph. It will pay off and make it a lot easier to write. Trying to sit down and write all your ideas and write it all beautifully at the same time is a lot to try and handle at once. After you've got all your ideas done in your pre-planning, then actually start to use your ideas to create your rough draft. The words and the phrases from stage 1 are put into sentences at this point, but they are usually sentences that are going to need some refining. Okay. Then after you've got kind of a rough copy of everything, now you're going to go back, look over your writing. Where are some places you can make the ideas flow more smoothly? Do the paragraphs make sense? Do you need to add some transition phrases, some linking, change your sentence structure? Anything you can do that will improve the overall writing. Finally, you do your editing. Editing is the cleanup stuff. It's correcting the spelling, correcting your grammar, correcting your punctuation, kind of the nitpicky stuff. Revising is more about the content, your ideas. Editing is more the tiny things, okay? And then publishing is just basically sending it along to me, okay? Oh, also with publishing, make sure you've got the title page. It's an easy 5 marks. Sometimes people forget to do it, and there's no point. Just go ahead and do it because it's such an easy way to get a few marks. This is kind of a rough draft of the marking rubric that I will be using for this essay. And these are the provincial categories, okay? Knowledge and understanding. Um, Here it's talking about opinion paragraphs because I kind of borrowed this from something else, but it's not just the opinion paragraphs, it's each paragraph. Does it show that you understand paragraph structure? That's going to be a huge part of this essay. And do you understand the novel, the resource material we used? Then I'm looking for critical and creative thinking skills. Those are things like how you develop your ideas, what information you select, how you present your evaluations, how do you organize the information and explain things, how do you form your conclusions, all those kind of things. And then communication. Basically, it's kind of looking at like how do you write your ideas? Are you aware of the audience? Are you aware of the purpose? How do you use the paragraph format? And then application. This is kind of more the nitty gritty stuff. This is where I'm looking at things like, um, are you using grammar correctly? Are you using punctuation, capitalization, all that kind of stuff? Here it talks about literary skills. It's kind of generic. Same thing with language conventions. Okay. So that's sort of the overall marking scheme for the rough and the good copy. So I'm not really sure if you've been out of school for a while, you may not have seen an overall essay for quite a while. This is kind of an example. It's what they call a typical 5 paragraph essay. Ours, I think, might end up being 6, but that doesn't functionally change everything. You still have to have that introductory paragraph, your body paragraphs that explain your main ideas, and then a closing paragraph. So this is an example that I want to kind of show you. For various reasons, I believe that morning recess needs to be extended because it does not allow students enough time to take care of their basic needs. Some people may disagree because they feel this will decrease instructional and learning time. However, I believe that a longer recess will allow students time to drink water and go to the bathroom. Also, students will have time to play team sports. Finally, the most important reason is students will have enough time to eat their healthy snacks. Consequently, I will argue that an extended recess benefits students' learning. So she's kind of talking about all the different reasons that she's about to discuss in more detail. Basically, her thesis or her big idea is morning recess needs to be longer, which I agree with her. Okay, so our first paragraph here, she's discussing in detail the idea that students need more time to leave to go to the bathroom and drink water. Now, sometimes people have trouble like, how do I extend that? That just seems like it's so obvious. But she extends it by showing you some examples. So she goes on. In fact, with a short recess, students interrupt the teacher and other students when they leave during recess time. Also, when they do leave during class, they miss the lessons and the teacher's instructions. For example, a student on my project team left to go to the washroom when the teacher was explaining how to do an activity. When he came back, I had to explain everything again to him, and we did not have enough time to finish our project. Therefore, if students have a longer recess, they will have adequate time to drink water and go to the bathroom and not miss the teacher's instructions. So then she moves on to her second point that with a longer recess period, students are able to play team sports. And then she goes into why she thinks that is important. In fact, students will build and develop team skills by playing team sports. In addition, students can relieve stress and energize themselves. For instance, after a long period of work, students get bored and sleepy and they have a difficult time listening and following directions. However, after they've had time to unwind during recess, they are more alert and ready to learn in class. So, to improve student attention in the classroom and build team skills, students need a longer recess to play team sports. So you notice too, she's following paragraph format for each paragraph. She gives you an opener, she gives you some examples, And then she closes up with restating her idea, but just in slightly different words. Then she moves on to her third argument. Third, students need more time to eat their nutritious snacks. Actually, when students are hungry, they pay less attention to the teacher's instructions because they are thinking of food instead. Furthermore, when students get hungry, they begin to fidget and disrupt others. For example, when I am not able to eat my snack during recess and it's time to go to class, the last thing I am thinking about is learning. Therefore, students need more time to eat their snacks during recess so they can focus more on the class instruction instead of their grumbling stomachs. Now, she wraps up her whole essay by doing a whole concluding paragraph. This part I know is a little bit tricky because we haven't done this kind of stuff before, but basically you kind of restate your overall thesis, restate your main arguments, and then kind of wrap it up. Consequently, I believe that a longer recess will benefit students and will improve their learning because they will be able to drink water, go to the bathroom, play sports, and add their snacks. And then she gives a specific example. In order to solve this solution or situation, I would say she should have said, I suggest taking 5 minutes from lunch and adding them to the morning recess, allowing instructional minutes to remain unchanged. The effect of my solution would be that students would not have the need to leave the room during instructional time, and they would be better prepared mentally and physically during class time. For these reasons, I conclude that longer recess will improve student learning. So we're not talking about recess, we're going to be talking about the novel, but this kind of gives you that overall format and the feel. And you can see it's quite a bit of words, right? It's going to take a little bit for us. I want to show you kind of two different sample organizers in order to like organize your thoughts. This is a very typical one where your overall topic would be up here, your main idea. So maybe you got your paragraph on the plot of the novel, paragraph on your opinion of the novel, paragraph on the characters, paragraph on the theme. And then you'd put kind of your main ideas here. Then when you go to write, you're just kind of trying to craft beautiful sentences. You're not having to worry about thinking about all your ideas first. So this looks like it would take time, but it actually makes your second round doing the rough draft so much easier once you've got all your ideas down. Now, not everybody kind of thinks this kind of way. So another possible way to do this is this kind of visual format. Here you'd put the topic essay in the middle, your four main ideas, and then supporting ideas or sentences here. You don't have to do it this way. I'm just strongly suggesting that you take time to do outlining and brainstorming before you start trying to write the essay. All right, so we're going to go into the content of each sort of paragraph. So here we're looking at summarizing the plot, which we've done a few times in this unit already, so we should be kind of getting pretty good at it. The beginning should tell about the setting, the main characters, and very often the problem. Usually in the main part of a story, there's multiple attempts to solve the problem. Generally, there are various obstacles that are going to get in the way of solving the problem. And then the climax or high point of the story is where the problem gets resolved in some fashion. And then the ending kind of wraps up or ties up all the loose endings, the loose storylines. In a big novel, there's often not just like one main idea, there's often little tiny plots that are going on. And usually the wrap up will sort of tie up all those kind of things too. We often talk about a story mountain or a plot where it starts off kind of small and gets bigger and then goes small again. So that's kind of the why we've got the little mountain there. Sometimes people aren't sure what is a major plot point versus what is a minor plot point. So for minor plot points, if you left it out, the storyline would still make sense if it doesn't get mentioned. If you drop it off, it doesn't affect the theme or the overall message in any way. Dropping it off has no major effect on the plot. It also has no major effect on any main character or their development. And the solution or problem can be solved regardless of this event. For a major plot point, the story won't make sense unless you mention that event. Or the theme or the message will not be clear without this event. Huge holes in time will occur, without that event where people will be like, I don't understand what happened. First they were here and then all of a sudden they were here. Large changes in a character's development will not make sense without mentioning this event. And the solution or the ending could not occur without this event. So if you're looking at the overall novel and trying to think, is this important? Is this not? Here's kind of some criteria to try and decide, do I include it or do I not include it? Obviously, you can't include every single plot point. Otherwise, you'd have an essay almost the same size as the novel, right? So here is some examples of situations or plot points, and you decide, is it a major plot point or is it a minor plot point? So the main character breaks off with his girlfriend. In most cases, I would say that's going to be a major plot point. It would depend. If the guy's going through girlfriends like water, then maybe not, but generally I would consider that a major event. The main character has a cute conversation about a football game with a cute girl. Probably minor, unless something important came from that. The cute girl decides to stalk him. Ooh, well, that's probably going to become major, right? Sometimes, like with that, I might need to go back and re-look at the previous point. Like I might need to introduce where the girl got met. Secondary character has an argument with his mom. This one kind of depends. Unless the argument affects the plot, it's probably minor because it's a minor character. It might not be. If they spend an entire chapter talking about it, then it's probably more important, but you're going to have to kind of do your best guess. But I'm going to say probably minor. Secondary character encourages a main character to help commit a crime. That is almost certainly going to be major. The main character goes on a date with another main character. Now, this is one where it would really depend. Do they go on to have like a really big relationship and it's a major part of the novel, or is it a minor little point and then it goes back to the main ideas? So it could be either one. So I'm not going to choose. It would depend on the novel there. The main character falls in love with another main character. That is almost certainly going to be major no matter what. Sorry, just trying to grab both of them. There we go. Two secondary characters go to a football game together. Again, unless something major happens at that football game, I'm going to say that that is probably a minor point. And last, two secondary characters decide to create a protest movement. I'm going to say that that would probably be a major event, even if it doesn't affect the main character. I feel like it's going to have to. So as I was looking at these, you could see what I was thinking about was not just the event, but what effect does it have on the novel as a whole? So if you're looking at the different events in the novel, think about how does this affect the overall message or plot? If it's going to affect it in a big way, make sure to include it. If it doesn't have a big effect, then don't include it. Okay. Paragraph structure for the plot summary paragraph. Remember that you need to follow good paragraph structure when summarizing the plot of the novel. This is supposed to be a little icon of a hamburger. Remember, we have the opening sentence at the top as the bun, and then all the juicy bits in the middle is all the different details, and then the bottom bun is your closing sentence. So you need to have a good opening sentence, you need several body sentences, and you need that closing sentence. Every paragraph you write in this essay needs to follow that sort of format. Okay, so talking about the main characters now, what is important to comment on as in like who is important? How do you decide if they're a main character? Sometimes that there's one person that is kind of obvious, but there may be other people that you're like, I don't know, are they people I should mention or not mention? First of all, do they appear in the majority of the novel? If they appear in every single chapter and they're always doing stuff, they're probably a main character. Do they have a large share of dialogue or action or decision making? Are they a major influence on a main character? And they need to be mentioned due to that. They might be kind of a secondary character, but you would still need to mention them if they have a big effect on what the main character does. Does understanding this character and their actions or decisions play a major role in understanding the theme or message of the book? So sometimes somebody, again, they may not be in every single chapter, but they really connect to the overall theme, and you'll need to mention them because of that. Also, is the character a major part of solving the problem? Sometimes there may be a character that doesn't really show up until the end of the book, but then they have a huge impact on how the problem gets solved, in which case you're going to need to mention them. They may not be a main character, they may be a secondary character, but then you will still have to mention them. Okay. Remember how we talked about the roles that characters can play on a TV show? Not like their just specific name, but kind of like what job they do in the story. So that's true in novels as well. I call this stereotypical. I don't mean that in a bad way, but like most novels will have these types of roles or these types of characters, just because in real life, that's how it is too. Um, Somebody may be the best friend character, the boyfriend girlfriend character. They may be the rival or possibly an enemy. They might be a mentor or a teacher. Maybe they're a rebel, possibly they're an outcast, or they may be a catalyst for change. And you may have some other roles that you can think of that you're like, oh, wait, why didn't she mention this? The other thing is somebody could be both. Like maybe the best friend is also an outcast, or maybe their rival is also a rebel. So they may kind of be having sort of two jobs in the story that they function as. So I want to talk about mentors or teachers. Usually these are older characters. They may be an actual teacher, or they may just be somebody who teaches something really important. And their main job in the novel is to give guidance or to share their wisdom. And their big job is to influence the main character. That's kind of what they're there for. So, for example, Nick Fury acts like a really tough mentor to many of the Avengers. Yoda acts as a mentor to Luke Skywalker. They're not the main person doing stuff, but they have a huge influence on the person who is doing things. Okay, looking at rivals versus enemies. Rivals are usually someone who's competing against a main character for something. Um, it's not necessarily like an enemy, it's a little bit a smaller kind of thing. It could be a sports competition, or maybe there's some major award they're going for, a performing arts role, a large business contract, a special job. Maybe they're even just a rival for a certain boy or girl. The emphasis is usually on the competition and trying to win, not on hatred or enmity. Or so this is, I think, a clip from Bring It On, where there's the two rival cheerleading teams that are trying to win. They're not enemies per se. They're both trying to get the main award, and they have all sorts of conversations and whatever. So that's kind of one type of opposition. Enemies is a much bigger or more strong kind of type of opposition, right? This might be more the idea of good versus evil. There may be a lot of hatred or a grudge behind these conflicts. Maybe somebody's out for revenge or even like trying to kill each other. So, for example, Thanos versus Iron Man, right? They end up in a giant battle and are literally trying to kill each other. They're such enemies. So, rivals and enemies are not exactly the same, even though they both kind of have an opposing role to the main character. And then we have rebels versus outcast. They kind of have a similar role. Often, if there's somebody who's a rebel or an outcast, it may be because the novel has a lot to do with discussing society's rules, society's effect on people. So, if that's a main theme of the novel, then you may have characters who act as a rebel or who act as an outcast to kind of um, help show that what society is doing to people. So a rebel might be somebody who defies authority. They may have a philosophy behind it, like I refuse to follow the conventions about business because I think they're wrong and terrible. Like the first people that were kind of involved with kind of opposing sweatshops and store that kind of thing. However, sometimes they just don't like being told what to do, right? They generally are going to stand out. They're not necessarily part of the crowd. They want to do whatever they want or whatever they believe is right. So a typical example might be Han Solo, right? He's kind of a rebel. He doesn't like people telling him what to do. He wants to kind of control his own destiny. He doesn't necessarily have a big philosophy behind it. He just wants to be his own person and doesn't like authority. On the other hand, you have somebody who's an outcast. And they will also kind of be by themselves a little bit, But for them, it's more because they don't fit in with the other people. They're not necessarily trying to stand out. It's more because they've been rejected by the main crowd or the main society because they're not following the norms of the society in some way. They may actually even want to fit in, but they just don't know how to do it. So, for example, I forget his name, but the Big Bang character here, uh, Wachowicz, I can't say his name right. Anyways, you know how he's always kind of gross and making really sexual comments and really inappropriate things, and he looks kind of funny. So, this is an example of somebody who's an outcast. He's not necessarily a rebel. He's not like opposed to authority. He just can't quite fit in. Okay. The last one, I was trying to think of how to phrase this. A catalyst for change. Um, a catalyst is somebody who's a person or a thing that kind of precipitates an event. In this case, I was thinking about people. Sometimes there's a main character, especially they might happen at the very beginning or at a major turning point in the novel, and they're a catalyst or like a spark to a main character. They may not be somebody who appears in the entire novel. It just may be something that's really big and pivotal. Maybe they do a criminal act. Maybe there's some sort of tragedy involving them, like maybe even a death. Maybe there's some sort of strange, unexpected conversation or a huge controversial issue. So I was trying to think of how to phrase that. I can't think of any other ways other than somebody who's a catalyst, somebody who shows up and suddenly everything changes because of them or something they do or something that happens to them. So that can be a type of character as well that you need to mention. Okay, so moving on, how do you figure out the theme or the message of an overall novel? So one big thing to look at is the issue of change. Okay, what has changed over the course of the novel? It can be for worse or for better, depending on the type of novel and what the overall message is. I mean, some novelists, they're pretty pessimistic and they may have a very gloomy overall message or theme, right? There's some authors I can't stand reading because they're so like, oh, life is horrible and everything is horrible and I don't care if to read that. But, you know, in this case, we kind of had to read this novel. What did you think of the overall theme? Some big areas to look at is what has changed inside the main character or characters. Like we're talking about their heart or their personality. What is different about them now? And if look at what's different, what theme does that show? What kind of transformation has happened? Or, depending on the novel, what has changed in the physical environment around them? Have they moved or altered their surroundings in a significant way that might express a theme? This could be something like somebody's like kind of gone into a forest that has no people and they've cut down the trees and created um, land there. Or it could be like the opposite, like somebody went into some place that was a well-populated town, but some sort of tragedy has occurred and the physical environment has just been destroyed. It really kind of depends on what kind of novel you're reading. Looking at that significant change, what kind of theme might be expressed by those kind of changes? You can also look at what has changed inside the character, sorry, not the character, the society or the community around them. Have their actions altered the community in some significant way? And what theme might this express? So I'm thinking of things where sometimes like one person stands up for something and then that gives other people courage to stand up for something. Or one person uh, changes a law and changing those laws changes things. Or just kind of things where somebody makes a change and it significantly affects other people, even though they only really did it for themselves, or maybe they did it for other people too. But looking at what's changed can give you a strong idea about what happened to the theme or the message. The other thing you can look at, remember we talked about types of conflict, okay? So the type of conflict can give you a good idea of what the theme is. So man against self. So for example, in A Star is Born, the main male character, he's struggling with addiction and all the problems that addiction causes him. What is the theme of that movie? I haven't even seen the entire movie, but could be we can be our own worst enemy, or love can heal brokenness, or whatever kind of theme you thought when we're talking about when you're fighting yourself. And then man against man. Here I've got Harry Potter versus Voldemort. Maybe competition can sharpen your skills. Humans are capable of great evil. Never let down your guard. Whatever kind of theme you thought came across in that movie. Man against nature. Here's a little scene from Twister. Uh, our intelligence is no match for the power of nature. Our intelligence is all that will help us survive. Those are two opposing ones because different writers might have different ideas, right? And that's okay. Community can come together in the face of disaster. Disasters can help you discover who you really are. Those are some examples of possible themes. I'm not saying that every movie will have those themes, but those are examples. Man against technology. This is a old picture from an old movie called War Games, where there's a AI computer that learns and sort of takes over the weapons defense in their country. And then this kid has to kind of teach it to discover that nobody's going to win in war so that it doesn't launch a bunch of nuclear missiles. Really good movie if you have a chance to see it. Might be careful what you invent, or intelligence must be tempered with kindness and goodness, or ethics must guide science and invention. Man against supernatural things. Often there's the importance of overcoming fear. Sometimes there's their idea like karma is going to get you. So like very often bad people or really foolish people will get killed first in uh, horror movies or movies about ghosts and things like that. And then man against society. Um, I was trying to think of an example of this. Dangers of conformity, dangers of rebellion. Society can be a force of good, or society can be a force of evil. Again, it depends on the events in the novel. Some other common themes are things like love conquers all. Family is the most important thing. No one can be trusted. Money can buy you happiness. Talent won't help without hard work. Patience is rewarded. Greatness can come from humble beginnings. Together we can fight what we could not fight alone. Never give up hope. I want to point out that these themes are a sentence, they're a statement. You can't just put our theme is love. Well, what kind of love? Love for family, love for your child, your partner, love for your community. You have to expand that one word to an overall sentence. What's the idea about love? What's the idea about family? Okay. So one word cannot be a theme. You have to tell me an idea about the big topic. Okay. When you're discussing theme, make sure to use examples to demonstrate your point. They could be examples of actions, dialogue, or changes that help support your idea. So, for example, let's say you read a novel and you thought a major theme in a novel was that war is destructive and pointless. So then you would want to state that idea for the theme at the beginning of the paragraph as your opening sentence. And then you would want to state the different ways that that theme is shown or expressed in the novel. And then at the end, you're going to want to write a closing sentence that restates the opening sentence in a different way. So here's an example, and I kind of underlined the closing and opening sentence. You don't have to do that. That's just so that I can make the structure more obvious to you guys. A major theme of this novel is that war is destructive and pointless in that it doesn't accomplish anything permanent. Obviously, the war is destructive in a physical way in that the bombings destroy not only the buildings in the town, but also the land around the town where farmers were growing food. However, the war is also destructive to families in that different members of the same family may hold such strongly opposing views in the war that they can even end up on opposite sides of the battle. In the same way, it destroys the trust and cooperation in the town's sense of community because of double agents, secret informers, and conflicting viewpoints. It leads to a place where no one is sure who they can trust anymore. The worst part is that after the war is over, it seems pointless. What did they really accomplish? They were not able to completely keep out the enemy people as they now live among them. They won the overall battle, but in doing so had to do such evil things, they no longer feel there's any significant difference between themselves and the enemy. Continually throughout this novel, the author tries to poke holes in the idea that war is glorious and showcases all the many ways that war destroys everything it touches. So that's an example of how to discuss theme in a novel. Okay. Um, Going on, there needs to be a paragraph where you're kind of discussing your opinion about a novel. Remember that when you discuss your opinion, you need to support it with evidence from the text. You cannot just say, I liked it or I hated it. You need to be way more specific. In fact, you're going to need to write an entire paragraph about it. You're going to need to mention specific aspects of the novel that you liked or that you didn't like. What was the overall message or theme? Like, did you like it or did you not like it? The characters. Was there stuff that you liked about them or didn't like? Their motives, their actions, their realism, the plot sequence. Did you think the things were believable or interesting? What did you feel about them? The actual writing itself, like the style they wrote in. Was it hard to read, boring, beautiful, judgmental? The genre. What about it do you love or hate? Like I said, some genres I get bored by and I can't stand to read. I don't read horror, for example. So if I had to read an entire novel on horror for a course, I would probably hate the book and I would have to explain what I hate about the genre and why I don't like it. Okay. So here's an example of what this looks like. We talked about this before when we were talking about our opinion of a media show. And it's the same thing. We're just doing it here, looking at a novel instead of looking at a show, but it's still expressing your opinion using supporting evidence. So, and again, I've highlighted the opening and highlighted the closing. Reading the novel Blackbirds Don't Sing was a pleasure. The plot is fast-paced and has many unique twists and turns. She ends each chapter on a cliffhanger that makes it almost impossible to put the book down. I also loved the main character, Bitmo, who portrayed the kind of woman I admire. Although she has been through many hardships, she remains focused on enjoying life and being kind to those around her. Even when she is betrayed by her former mentor, Mr. Gray, she manages to pull herself together and keep on going. That doesn't mean she is soft. In fact, she gets revenge on him later, not by physically hurting him, but by gathering evidence that will destroy him in court. The dialogue is also interesting. Bitmo is at times cryptic, humorous, and deeply emotional when she trusts who she is talking to. And then I sort of wrap it up by re reiterating my points very briefly. The suspenseful plotting, the hopeful characters, and dialogue, I couldn't think of an adjective there, that grabs your attention work together to create a book that I highly recommend if you have a weekend to let yourself get lost in this thriller. So that's just an example of how you can discuss your opinion on the novel. And again, it's fine if you didn't like the book too. It's fine. Just explain what you didn't like about it. Okay, I'm now after kind of talking about all the other things, I wanted to look at introductory paragraph. It's fine, and in fact, I encourage you to write the other paragraphs first and then come back and write the introductory paragraph. Often I find it isn't until I've been writing for a while about a topic that I begin to get a sense of what I consider the overall main idea. So an introductory paragraph has kind of a format. Usually there's some sort of hook or attention grabbing statement at the very beginning. Then there's some sort of background or general statements. Sometimes people will kind of pre-state what they're about to talk about. And then there's your specific overall thesis or argument. For this particular essay, we've got all these different topics. I really strongly suggest that you might want to think about your opinion of the novel or the theme of the novel and use that to kind of be your overall thesis or lens to look at the entire novel from. There is a detailed article on writing an introduction. I don't think we're going to have time to go through it, but I'm just going to kind of show it to you real quick so that you could go back and grab it if you wanted to. Sorry. Oh, okay. Sorry, in Google, this works really well. I don't find it works as well from PowerPoint. The site Scribr has an academic essay introduction. It gives you all sorts of examples, details, explanation. If you're really struggling with how to write an introduction, this is a really thorough essay to take a look at that will give you some more ideas, okay? Concluding paragraph format. At the end, you're going to write a concluding paragraph that summarizes your entire essay so far. You're going to restate your main thesis, remind the readers of your overall main point, reiterate or restate your supporting points. That's the kind of the main topic for each paragraph. Wrap everything up by tying it all together, and then write a clincher, some sort of interesting last sentence. That part is tricky. I'm not worried too much about it, but the idea that you have your thesis and restate your supporting points, those are crucial. Those have to happen in your paragraph. We talked about the opening paragraph being a funnel, right? Going from large ideas down to a small idea. Usually a concluding paragraph is considered to be a reverse funnel. So you start off with your big idea or your thesis, you restate the major point of each paragraph, and then you kind of end on a more generic or interesting note. So here's an example of a conclusion paragraph from the Inspired Pencil. So here's his thesis. As the level-headed and daring man who defeats General Zaroff with his wit, Rainsford proves to be one of the most courageous characters readers have ever seen. And then he rediscusses the main arguments of each paragraph. First of all, becoming marooned on Ship Trap Island does not faze him, despite the fact that Whitney explained to him that sailors dread the place. Second, during the game with the Zaroff, Rainsford performs daring deeds like jumping off cliffs into the Caribbean without hesitation or fear. Lastly, he combines this courage with his intelligence in order to beat Zaroff at his own game. And then he kind of wraps things up. Prior to this defeat of Zaroff, Ransford was the hunter, not the hunted, and he believed that his prey could not understand fear. However, as the hunted, he had to assert his bravery over and over again in order to win the game. As a result, Rainsford and the reader learn that even the hunted can experience fear. They just have to conquer it, like the courageous Rainsford does. So that is an example of somebody finishing up their essay. I know this is a big project. It is culminating. It's worth 80 marks. If you're having problems with any particular aspect of it, by all means, give me a phone call or send me a message, and I'd be happy to kind of help you walk through whatever part you're finding tricky. Thank you so much for joining us. Today's Wednesday. We will have another class tomorrow and tackle the beginning of Unit 3. Thank you so much for showing up.